Hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of JWA Fixes. This episode is all about ornithomimids. Even though I did do an ornithomimid themed episode a while back, in fact, nothing has changed. These are all the exact same creatures, except for one, right over here, but we'll talk about her later. I'm also not sure if I talked about Ornithomimids during that time. This was just one of the many creatures I borrowed from Jurassic World, the game, and threw it into this game. This little website here. I'm not sure if we covered it last time or not, but either way, this time around, we are going to be giving designs to all four of my unique ornithomimids, which is ankylorathomimus, archaeodactylus, cockamimus, and uravimimus. I guess there's also technically archaeodactylus, but that's not my creation, that's an actual dinosaur. All I did was just give it a proper profile picture. It's literally just the one from Jurassic World Evolution, slapped onto a JWA logo. We are going to start with ankylorathomimus, a hybrid between adorable baby Bumpy and one of my favorite hybrids in this game, Ornithomimid. I'm honestly shocked that it still doesn't have a hybrid at this point. You would think that they would love to, never mind. This is all fictional, doesn't matter. We're just focusing on what I created. Stats should be unchanged, as well as the abilities, because I didn't really change anything about this. In fact, there it is, the unique ability I made for all ankylosaurs, Bone Break, where it imposes vulnerability by the usual amount, and then deal damage, which is a pretty meh ability nowadays. There are lots of abilities that apply vulnerability before dealing damage now. Some pretty so-so resistances. And then we get into the story, but we'll have to talk about that after the design process, which this one was the first one I made, and it's kind of my favorite. It was my favorite to design because all I had to do was take the original Ornithomimid render and then just to give it a few certain ankylosaur features wherever necessary, which is like a beak, some spikes on the head and under the chin, and then a bunch of spikes on the back as well. But tying in with the lore of this creature, I kept all of the Ankylosaurus features pretty well hidden under all of those feathers. It's not as fully feathered as Ornithomimid. It's only half feathered so that it can still allow some of those spikes to come through. If I just made this thing fully feathered, I wouldn't exactly know how to incorporate all the spikes, to show they're hidden and whatnot. As for the colors, they are basically just Bumpy's colors on top of it, which is the only green and red, well, it's just on the crest. I also gave it a bit of a grumpy kind of expression, but hey, gotta let that Proceratosaurus DNA get out somehow. That's why it also has exposed teeth. And now it is time to introduce Ankylorathomimus. The Ankylosaurus DNA allows this hybrid to grow bigger than most ornithomimids, adorned in subtle armor hidden underneath the feathery coat. It remains on the outer parts of the flock, trailing behind the others due to its slower speed. This causes predators to target it over the others, but they're often greeted with an unpleasant surprise as they break their teeth on the hidden armor. Only apex predators with bone-crushing bites can fatally wound Ankylorathomimus, turning them into a delectable crunchy snack. Every time I do one of these episodes, I release a poll to let people decide which hybrid they like the best out of the four. And more often than not, there is always one dinosaur that gets a ton more votes than every other one. And this time, I'm placing all my money that this is the one that becomes the fan favorite. If that happens, I can't really blame them for picking this one as their favorite because this one just looks gorgeous. One reason I like Bumpy so much is because of her appealing color scheme. And even though I really love the colors of Ornithomimid, I couldn't exactly just throw those colors onto this. Otherwise, this would basically just be Ornithomimid, but with teeth and spikes, and that wouldn't be very creative. I would be no better than Ludia. Granted, my excuse is that this is only combining 3 creatures, and the Proceratosaurus DNA is already kinda hidden. Basically, it has Proceratosaurus's teeth and crest, it has the Ornithomimid overall build with the feathers and whatnot, and it carries over Bumpy's colors and spikes. Not exactly her spikes because this doesn't have the asymmetrical horns, nor does it the spikes. They're not even the right colors. Her spikes are beige-ish, and these ones are just black. just because I wanted to keep a consistent color scheme with the beak. Well, yeah, I guess that's another thing that carries over from the ankylosaur DNA, the beak! I also love how I incorporated the club tail. Like, I did draw a proper club tail, but it's hidden behind that tail fan. And I also like how the backstory I gave it, or like the little description, made it sound defensive, but not invincible. Like, it's not full-on ankylosaur armor. A T-Rex can still run up and chop it in half if it wanted to. But that's enough ankylorathomimus praise. Man, that's a hard name to say. Let's move on to the next ornithomimid on this list, archaeodactylus, the only one that doesn't have mimus in its name. Hybrid between my fan-made Ornithomimid and the ever-so-irritating Dimodactylus, the dinosaur or the pterosaur that is constantly getting buffed because Ludia thinks it's not annoying enough when really it is very annoying to deal with. I don't think I changed much about its abilities. They should still be the same since last time we saw it, although was armor reduction a thing back when I did this? I honestly can't remember. Though I guess I have to admit, this is kind of a Scorpiodactylus moment, where the only thing I could really carry over from Dimodactylus without making this thing look like too fictional was just the crests and the chin. That's basically it. I guess basically I took sorta the entire head of Dimodactylus and sorta worked it onto the Archaeornithomimus body. Although one small thing I did add was I gave it tiny arms, but I gave those tiny arms little wingage, like very useless wings. It also sorta carries over the color scheme. Dimodactylus has a very odd color scheme. It's like orange and brown, but there's hints of green everywhere, so that's where I ended up just putting all of it together. And the more I worked on it, the more I realized how goofy this thing looked. And I decided, hey, let's just give it a little feature and just make this thing of an absolutely wacko kind of creature design, which kind of fits with its lore, which we shall get into right now. Archaeodactylus are not very intelligent creatures. The pterosaur genome within them gives them the instinct to fly, but their tiny arms make them incapable of doing so. It is further plagued by its Jurassic World Dimorphodon ancestry, granting it random outbursts of unjustified aggression. This has created an interesting reaction to danger. When startled, Archaeodactylus will rapidly flap their arms in a panic. Once they regain their composure, they fork together and attack whoever startled them. This can have varying results depending on who the attacker is. Dang, compared to the people on my Discord, these descriptions are short. Either way, the only word to describe this guy is stupid. I literally designed him to be a stupid dinosaur, and it's ever so present by the way his tongue is constantly sticking out of his mouth. And while I was testing out the mouth articulation, I realized he had the goofiest looking smile as he opened his mouth, and I just thought, let's just add a tongue there and just make it look like he's just cackling his little head off. And while Ankylorathomimus was a lot of fun to pose, this guy was even more fun because I could just get away with some ridiculous poses. Especially when I added his berserk state, where his eye turns red and he just looks like he's possessed and he's ready to kill. Especially this pose right here, it's insane. Like, the color scheme isn't that appealing, and I definitely went very hard on the scaly textures all over it wherever I could. But this thing is pretty much saved by the fact that it's just a goofy little guy, and he's got some ridiculous poses to boot, which is, he's mainly carried by his poses. That's all. I love this guy. But believe it or not, that is not the weirdest dinosaur of today's roster, as we are now going to introduce the cockamimus, named after the cockatrice. And I have to say that right away, because I'm pretty sure I cannot say this name without all of you thinking of something else, because the internet loves to give alternate meanings to every word in the dictionary. Stats should be relatively unchanged. Maybe Alert Mimic is new? Who knows. Either way, yeah, just a pretty simple apex nowadays. I'm pretty sure this thing would die easily to, like, literally any flock. Wait, does it even have group attack? No, it does have a group attack, but only the one. I'm pretty sure it would still die. It does have a... It doesn't... Didn't I give this thing healing counter? No? Well, it does have quite a few healing moves. I should probably give it, like, heal resistances so we can still fully heal. Now, designing this one, I took the Gallimimus from the Jurassic Park style guide as a soft reference, not a full-on reference, because, like, I was trying to beef it up a bit because this thing is basically a cockatrice, and cockatrices are basically chicken dragons with snake tails. So I basically wanted to make this thing a chicken. Like, it's a chickenosaurus. That's literally all it is. In fact, once we get to the head, it's just very obvious this thing is meant to be a chicken. But I still put my all into it, giving it lots of feathers, almost pretty much all over the body, more feathers than even ankylorathomimus had, and a little bit of an Easter egg on the snake tail. I just went crazy with the colors, giving it very, like, usually when I think of cockatrice, I think of greens and reds and yellows and sometimes white, because chicken heads are usually white. And now we can see how deadly the cockamimus is. Cockatrices are mythical creatures with a tremendous power, the ability to turn any living creature to stone with its glare. How such a powerful name was granted to a feeble and easily startled ornithomimid is beyond anyone's comprehension. Perhaps it was due to its unique colors that resemble most interpretations of the beast. Perhaps it's the fact that the creature is only half-feathered, revealing a snake-like hide underneath. Or maybe it's because flocks of these creatures are often spotted in the company of Hadros lux, as if they're drawn to its ghastly glow. Wait, no, that has nothing to do with cockatrice. Now, this is probably one of the dumbest things I've ever created. It's basically just a dinosaur body, but with the head of a chicken. That being said, I still love the way this thing turned out. It's just all these different greens coming together. And the way the feathers just decorate the whole body, and all the different colors I used on each, like sometimes there's like, it's dark green, but there's also light green on top of it. Sometimes it's just a semi-dark green. It's like, it's hard to describe. As well as the fact that it has chicken feet and the chicken belly. Well, not really a chicken belly, just like a dragon belly, technically. It's got like claws, it's got like red feathers on the arms, which are like a little more spiky. And then just this goofy looking chicken head on top, and then the tail. The tail is much longer than the style guide suggested, which it should be, because I wanted to include that little tip, which was meant to look like a snake tongue to show off. It's like, hey, you know, cockatrices have snakes on their tails, or snakes for tails. So obviously I can't put a snake on its tail, so I just made it look like it had a snake tongue on its tail. Heck, I was tempted to almost give that tail a false eye to make it look like, yeah, that's how it tries to trick its enemies, but like, yeah. I also love how I made this creature and then gave it such a backstory where it's like, it has no powers at all. There's nothing special about it. It's literally just a giant chicken that just so happens to appreciate the company of Hadros lux. That's about it. So it's time for this giant chicken to fly the coop as we check out, well, we gotta check out 3 creatures for this last bit. Because, first of all, I had to, before I could get into the last creature, I had to design a regular Gallimimus. So once again, I used the style guide, except this time I just full-on copied all the proportions necessary, including the colors. Although the pattern's not, like, exactly from the style guide, I kinda winged it a bit when I came to the patterns. But for the most part, proportions, body shape, legs, arms, head, they should all be from the style guide. Like, I've changed up the lore of uravimimus a lot since we last saw it. So, and for this new lore, I needed a regular Gallimimus, and I was going to use this regular brown one. But then I realized, I don't know. Do I really want my apex based off of Uraraka to just be a regular Gallimimus? No. So, that's when I started to create Gallimimus Gen 2, which is basically just a recolor of Gen 1. Using the colors of Uraraka's, the green parts of her suit, the greenish bluish parts of her suit, which are like the shaded area and the non-shaded areas as like the base pattern. I was also going to use the pink for the patterns, but then I thought, nah, we don't need that. We need to make this thing look like its own creature first before referencing Uraraka. So I changed all those patterns to a light blue, which made this thing, it just unintentionally made this thing look like a beautiful regular Gallimimus. In fact, I didn't even make this little Gallimimus Gen 2 card here until after I had finished, when I realized this design is so good and it deserves to be its own creature. And this will be your first time looking at it, with like some pretty weak stats and a weak ability. Then it has Jab and Weave, Greater Group Heal, and Shrill Victory on Escape, which helps you think, okay, maybe I should put this thing on my team for rare tournaments, until you realize Omegas are also part of that tournament. A lot more resistances than most of the other Gallimids, or sorry, Ornithomimids. And then the lore is just small but simple. It also ties into the new lore of uravimimus, so let's get started. These gallimimus were created in secret to assist in illegal experiments. When the operation was shut down, they were cared for and lived the rest of their lives in a dinosaur sanctuary. Every now and then, a few managed to escape into the wild. And all of this ties into... Okay, why does it keep doing that? Uravimimus, which hasn't gotten any changes since we last saw it. Group cunning impact, floating dual claw, instant afflicting distraction. Wait, okay, yeah, that's 4 abilities. Power counter heal, it's okay. It's like, kind of an kind of move set. Pretty weak stats, so yeah, I don't expect it to kill anything anytime soon. Resistances are also kind of As the design of this thing, it's quite simple. Most of that was just into Gallimimus Gen 2, and after I was done, I just started adding some of Uraraka's armor onto it. Now, some are pretty straightforward, like the boots and the gauntlets and the helmet, although the helmet does have a bit of an astronaut bit of looking glass onto it, just to add that extra, just to make it a little more unique, as Uraraka doesn't have like a full helmet. Well, not anymore anyway, she used to. But yeah, I took a lot of creative liberty. Since this Gallimimus wasn't born with the ability to fly, they just planted a jetpack onto it, but that ties into a lore, which we should probably get into right now. Raised with other Gallimimus for experiments, Uravimimus was an attempt at weaponizing a dinosaur with Uravity's zero-gravity quirk. She was equipped with a copy of Uravity's suit, but with the addition of a jetpack to grant Uravimimus with the ability to fly. After many months of testing, she learned to master the gift of flight, but she endured a lot of suffering in the process. Thankfully, the operation was shut down, and Uravimimus and her sisters were all saved. While her sisters lived in luxury at a dinosaur sanctuary, Uravimimus continues to use her powers for good, alongside her new master, Uravity. Pinky is the one who named her Uravimimus as a joke, but the name was so popular that it never left her. Now, I feel like I could have done a little bit better here and there. Like, the helmet, I could have reworked it so that it can still open and close its mouth. And maybe those little fins on its arms are a little, they're not part of Uravity's suit. I just put that there to help with aerodynamics when it's flying. But it's like, are they really necessary? Who knows? And then, like, part of her belt, I reworked as just random straps throughout the neck and the tail. Those don't really serve any functional purpose. They're just there to help, like, pan out the design to help it look like it is a dinosaur wearing armor, or, like, some sort of armor. And of course, it's pretty unrealistic that putting a jetpack on a dinosaur is not gonna be able to learn how to use it. It's gonna die. It's just gonna crash into a wall. But this is fiction, so none of that matters! Uravimimus will fly wherever it wants, and no one can stop her. But yeah, that's it. Those are all 4 of my original, ornithomimids. Technically 6 if we include Archaeodactylus and Gallimimus Gen 2, but again, those are real dinosaurs, so can't really say those are unique. Ankylorathomimus on top because those colors are beautiful. Gallimimus Gen 2, because, again, beautiful colors. Uravimimus, because it's basically the same thing, but with armor on top. Cockamimus, just because it's a goofy-looking chicken. Archaeodactylus is the stupidest thing on legs. And then my random Gallimimus at the bottom, because, it's accurate, but it's still, like, browns, like, just dull browns. But now for the part that I know everyone really wants to see, the submission requirements for next episodes of JWA Fixes, where I will be drawing your dinosaur. In order to submit something is quite simple. First, you gotta join my Discord server, then find the JWA Editions channel, ping me, include one of these paleo.gg cards so I can see the name and the hybrid ingredients if there are any, as well as the stats and abilities, yada yada yada. Dedicate 1 paragraph to a simple physical description, contributing any specific traits you want it to have, how big it is, what colors it is, does it have webbed feet, is it just a duck with biceps? And the second paragraph should be dedicated to the creature's story. Doesn't matter if it's realistic, or short, or long, or complete fantasy, it doesn't matter. You've seen how ridiculous these animated segments turn out. Last time, the theme was herbivore hybrids, and this time I was going to do ornithomimid hybrids, as in, like, doesn't matter what the ingredients are as long as it ends up with the ornithomimid animation. But then I realized the point of Gallimimus Gen 2 is that they were all created to become superhero dinosaurs. And so far I've only revealed uravimimus as the only candidate, but surely the others were experimented on as well, right? So let's test your creativity and see what can you create with Gallimimus Gen 2. Whether it's a hybrid ingredient for something else, or if you're going to make another apex superhero like uravimimus. Or even the regular Gallimimus, because I do have that rig of just a default Gallimimus. So yeah, your options are to make a hybrid out of Gallimimus or Gallimimus Gen 2, or to make an apex superhero Gally from Gen 1 or 2. Well, preferably Gen 2, actually, considering that one was designed to be in the facility. But that's the end of the video. Tell me which one of these ornithomimids is your favorite. And I can't wait to see what kind of crazy things people come up with on Discord. See you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video from beginning to end. If you want to see more, subscribe to the channel and join the Zainreborn community. See you in the next one. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.